Hi, everyone. So welcome to this online teaching with Venerable Amy. We are very, very happy to host her tonight. I'm just surprised that, yeah. Before we start, can I just ask you to switch your language to French if you need to hear the French? There is an option at the bottom of your screen. You should have an interpretation button. And then just remember to switch off your mic and just pretend that you are in a gompa. So as much as possible, just behave as you would do in a gompa. And then if you can switch your video on, I think it's nicer for Venerable Amy to be able to see at least some of us, just to interact with us. And the last thing is there is a chat option also at the bottom. And Virginie will be answering questions. So if you have any questions and it's not sort of a question about the teaching, you can use the chat and then we'll try to help you as much as we can. Venerable Amy, I'm so glad to have you teaching tonight. Venerable Amy is a really very, very dear nun to me. She taught a lot in New York when I was involved there, and it was wonderful to have each time she came. So I'm really glad that you also have the opportunity to hear teach if you did not in the past. She's been really dedicating her life to the Dharma for the last 30 years, I think. So yeah, that's quite a long time. Teaching a lot, managing different centers and projects for FPMT, also being very close to a very highly realized beings. So yeah, and also doing a lot of retreats on our own. So it's really a pleasure to have you tonight, Venerable. So I'm asking you to apologize, Venerable Elizabeth. We are actually organizing the election for the Tibetan people tomorrow at the center, and they asked to set up tonight. So she had to go to the center, but that's why she's not here, which is also why I'm going to offer the mandala to you. In a sort of traditional way, apart from the fact that I can't do it in Tibetan, so I do it in English. And the idea is really to offer Venerable Amy as much as possible wonderful thing, and thinking that she's in a way representing the Buddha, so teaching the Dhamma being the teaching of the Buddha tonight, so also offering to all the Buddhas, so really visualizing wonderful words and everything we have just offering. So this ground, anointed with perfumes, tuneless flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Varatat Mandakala Yaleta Melani. And thank you, Venerable.
So I would like to thank Arnaud, who's an old friend, a dear friend from when he was in New York, and Venerable Elizabeth's old friend, and all of the people at Centre Kalachakra. I'd like to thank all of you that make this possible, the team, the dear Nadia, who is interpreting. Thank you so much. And all the other people that are making this possible. So thank you. Merci bien et bonsoir. And for some of you, bonjour, because it's daytime, like it is for me. So we're in different time zones. But I want to thank you so much for showing up. I hope to make this useful for you as far as what happens when anxiety, particularly anxiety and depression, arise in our mind streams. And there is a lot of that right now on the planet. due to the global situation, as we know, with the pandemic. However, I find it's always operating on the planet. Anxiety, depression, other negative, imbalanced states of mind. So we're really going to do some meditations, discuss, explore how we can better balance our mind situation. That balances our lives. That makes you happier. So that's really going to be what we're going to do in these 5 sessions. Obviously, if you can attend all the sessions, you will get more out of it. They do follow. Of course, I understand not everyone may be able to do that. So whatever you can participate in, and please, I think Nadia knows if I'm speaking too quickly because I get excited about something I'm talking about. If you don't understand a word, something I'm saying, which would be mostly Nadia, we'll just pause for a moment. We'll explain. I'll slow down and we'll go from there. So I think I will leave time in each session for questions and answers. Whichever is your preference, if you're putting them in the chat, then they can be translated. So you can write in any language, or particularly French, that's fine. And you're also welcome to raise your hand. And if I'm in the middle of a train of thought, I may just ask you to wait one moment and if not, it might be applicable to something we're talking about. So there's a couple different options like that. Again, I will intersperse meditations with the different topics we're going to go through, and we will also be getting to specific antidotes for not only depression and anxiety, but many imbalanced mind states like anger, attachment, guilt, fear, jealousy, pride, things like that. So, and I appreciate very much Arnaud explaining, like, thank you so much for being here with your face, because it's helpful when you really feel you're at a teaching, like in a Gompa, as opposed to some of the places I've taught, they don't give any parameters. And you find people lying in bed, lying down, drinking wine. You know, we like to do those things, but it's not that appropriate for teaching. So I generally don't say anything, but sometimes the center has, you know, gotten upset with people or like that. So if you find you are moving around a lot on your camera, just close your camera off then for a while, because it can distract people like that. So thank you once again. Thank you so much. And it was very sweet what Arnaud said, my history of the Dharma. But what I did realize, somebody just pointed this out to me this week, these old friends I met at Kopan Monastery during my first course. They were there, and they don't live near me at all now, but we were somehow dialoguing and online. And they reminded me of this is the week, the anniversary of my first course in Buddhism at Kopan Monastery in Nepal. And it was 34 years ago this week. So I was really thinking, wow, it's 34 years ago. I was a different person then. Okay. So let's maybe find ways that we can emerge as different people as well, meaning our behavior is still us, but can we change up some of the aspects of ourselves we're not comfortable with? And we're not going to deny those aspects, and we're not going to rid ourselves necessarily of those aspects, but it's about embracing, getting to know these aspects and embracing all of it as we work to transform some of those aspects into something more positive. So let's begin with some motivation and meditation that, in a sense, will not only get us into the right mind state, but really helps us to begin to get to know our mind. So what I'd like you to do is there's a refuge prayer that Arnaud is putting up on his screen, the 4-line prayer. And this is essential about refuge. And I know we're all at different levels here. So refuge is really about where do you go for protection from more suffering? And when you suffer, kind of where do you go for comfort and shelter and help and support? So rather than just repeating these lines, okay, which we often do before teaching, we don't even think, we just blah, blah, okay? I'd like you to close your eyes for a moment. I'd like you to reflect briefly. Can you bring up in your mind this past week, were there any problems this past week in your life? Could be a small problem, could be something larger, or possibly the last month if you can't think of anything this past week. And please get a sense of that situation, what we would label problem, difficulty. And a little bit, bring yourself back into that situation, just for a moment, and look at what your responses were to the situation. So were you able to quickly transform the situation? Perhaps with changing your attitude, a particular Dharma practice? Did you reach out to anybody for help? Who did you reach out to? And what sort of advice did they give you? Were you able to follow the advice, and was the advice helpful then? So what we tend to do, if you are a Buddhist or Dharma practitioner, is in all these unbalanced instances of life, you have an opportunity to reach out to highly enlightened beings, to a highly advanced philosophy that will free you from suffering permanently. And that's the Guru, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, just those, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, we call the 3 jewels, or the 3 jewels of refuge, sometimes called the triple gem. It's the same. The Buddha jewel is the historical Buddha Shakyamuni, who lived about 2,600 years ago. But on an ultimate level, he represents the omniscient mind or consciousness, the all-knowing mind. Think about what would happen to fear if you were all knowing. What would happen to your mind state if you were all knowing? Think about how you could help others if you were all knowing. So you explore a little bit the qualities of the Buddha in your own training, your own time, to develop a conviction, this is somebody I'd like to turn to. And then we have the Dharma jewel, which is all the philosophy that the Buddha taught, all the discourses, all the commentaries and explanations of those discourses, sutras. The ultimate Dharma jewel, though, are the teachings on emptiness, the nature of reality, perfecting your view in a sense. And if you have that right view and you see everything clearly, are you going to have any problems? The third jewel is the Sangha jewel. The Sangha jewel could be your spiritual community, like the center in Paris. It could be monks and nuns, more particular, those who've committed a little bit deeper level of their lives to practice. But that's a conventional level, but the ultimate Dharma jewel are Arya beings. That means they have seen emptiness directly. They've seen the nature of reality directly. And they can tell you how to get there, and they can help support you doing that path. So as you'd explore beings you might meet like that, you may develop a conviction. Those are the people I prefer to seek guidance from. Why? Because they know. So in French, you'd say capital say, right? No, I think connaît, you'd use that word. Because in English, it's know, K-N-O-W, to know the truth directly.
That should be the same probably in French. Connaître.
Connaître, but it's with a C. It's with a C, right?
Right. It's with a C. Yeah.
Okay. So again, that kind of knowing. So this is what we're really taking refuge in when you think about it. So with that in mind, right now, putting your mind in a positive place, in as positive a place as possible, and thinking about using the information from this class to help us counter negativities in our mind. But why are we really doing this? And in this tradition of Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, we're very focused on not just getting enlightened, okay, but the purpose why you want to get enlightened and become a Buddha is then you're unlimited in helping all living beings. That's why you're seeking support from the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha to get you to that place. But the real purpose is because you're unlimited in benefiting all living beings. So for that purposes, you can feel that a bit in your heart right now. And you may, I'm sure many of you have set a motivation this morning, positive motivation for all the activities of your day. You may have rekindled or reestablished that motivation throughout the day in your practice. Or maybe you never thought about it again, but now we're going to think about it again to really orient ourselves for this time. So for really the purpose of benefiting all living beings, we're going to get together and talk about countering anxiety and depression in the mind. And we're going to recite these verses with that in mind. So feel free to recite in French, or we can do one of the verses in, well, why don't we start with one of the verses, the first one in the Tibetan phonetics, and then do in your own language, the second 2 repetitions. We do 3 times. Sangye Chodren so kicho nam la jan chu ba ju de ni kyap su chi dagi jin so gi pe di so nam ki dro la pencho sangye dro par sho Sangye Chodren so kicho par sho. Thank you. I know there's some people writing in the chat. I'm not going to focus on that while I teach, but if there is something Arnaud or someone else, anything that needs to be tended to, please have a look there and let me know if there's something that I need to do. Please let me know.
We have Virginie checking sort of
Okay.
all the time, so we are
Wonderful.
managing it, and we'll let you know.
And I'm just checking in because we're just starting. Nadia, is it my pace okay right now?
Yes, in general, your pace is really fine. Maybe in some time you would go a little bit too fast, but it's really rare, and I will let you know.
Okay,
so
I will try to be more mindful to slow down.
Thank you. It's okay though.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's really helpful to start. I wanted to mention that prayer, the refuge prayer, again, because it's one of the most common. And what happens is, again, we just say it. So it's better if you're ever doing prayers, which can be very helpful, if you're reciting mantras. Some of you have daily practices you are doing every day that you like, but did you ever notice your focus is somewhere else? It's normal. It's normal. The first thing is, how do we get real about our practice? And this is about you also getting to know your mind. This is what releases us from the hold of depression and anxiety more and more. This, for me, this whole path, and especially my meditation practice, and I'm going to talk more about that. This whole path is so much about getting to know your mind. And the more I get to know my mind, the more comfortable I get with my mind. The more comfortable I get with my mind, I learn compassionately what aspects of my mind need to be shifted a bit. And I learn to develop patience in that process. And how I learned it was not being patient or compassionate with myself, which is a common theme of Western culture. People meet the Dharma teachings, and I know some of you have been around for a long time with Buddhism, great. But we come in contact with these teachings, we get excited, something new like that, and then we start practicing, but we might be 30 or 40 years old when we started, maybe older. That's fine, doesn't matter. And then after 2 months, we get disillusioned. And I've had many students ask me and talk with me that I've been practicing and meditating for 2 months, and they'll say, and I still get angry. Okay, so the first step is, let's just be real with ourselves. It's a big process, and we're not, as Westerners, we're not very good at it. So I had to take a long look at my mind in the beginning of the Dharma, and even throughout, where I realized how heavy I was with myself, how tightly wound I was holding. Like I should have had all the knowledge right away. It's not possible. And it's not realistic. And we didn't have all the knowledge in any other aspect of our lives when we first were new to something. So one thing I'd often say that I really feel is a way into countering depression and anxiety in particular is relax. Please relax. It's a huge space of mind to start to relax yourself. And that's where meditation comes in so helpfully. Okay. So I will mention, and some of you already have a meditation practice. I rejoice. Thank you so much. Because that's a benefit for the world, seriously. And if you don't, and I'm gonna start to teach a couple classes meditation, recommend, or eventually you can find them on my YouTube channel, and I'll later let you know the website. But mid-April, I'm doing a weekend. It might be next weekend for our center in Vermont. So the times may not work great for you, but the daytime on Saturday, it does, at least the morning session. But this is a request, people wanting to know how to meditate specifically on the Lam Rim, our philosophy. So there's some people that want to do the pandemic, you're locked down. France is locked down again. I'm so sorry. And it's been like a mini retreat though, the pandemic, if you're using it well. Okay, now I know that some of us, we got into lazy patterns and you're traversing through the kitchen and eating everything in sight and you're irritated with the people you're living with, right? Or you're lonely because you're not living with anyone. Like there's all these experiences we've had that are suddenly new this past year and we're adapting. And some people are adapting really well and some not, okay? So in the beginning I've just found myself for the past year living in this one house, which is my parents' house. They passed. And I usually travel half the year. So I'm grounded. It's been like a mini retreat. And you can this is the time to set up that meditation practice. Find the space in your house if you're not doing it already. But people have come to me and said, okay, I want to do now, I'm ready to do like a day-long Lam Rim retreat in my house. And I don't know what to do. Like they say Lam Rim, the philosophy, many of you are familiar, simply means steps on the path. It's our underlying philosophy. But they want to know, how do I do analytical meditation? So this is what this next weekend is going to be focused on, with 3 sessions, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. And again, if you can't, the times don't work, it will and ended up being posted on my YouTube channel that I'll give you the link. So the next thing is our New York Center asked me to do, once again, a meditation 101, because I'm not going to spend a lot of time here focused on setting up the meditation practice, but meditation 101, which may be offered at your center in Paris, perfect for like, okay, how do I do it? What do I do? Do I need an altar? Do I need this? What do I do? I can't sit on a cushion. I need to sit in a chair. That's what we're going to talk about. Okay. But the beginning is start to make a place in your home and start to find it comfortable. Set it up however you like. Cushion, chair, doesn't matter. You don't need any fancy altars. It has to just be a place that you will feel invited and it's comfortable and you want to go there and sit. And that's where you do your work. You have a fight with your husband, fight with your wife, and you can't really deal with it at the time. And there's a door slams and then you go back to your little quiet space. A space you can shut a door and be alone. It can be a closet, right? What part of my altar is there in that closet? That's a closet and that's where the altar is. And I sit there. You see the little lamp? That's my table. So I redid that in the pandemic. Great, no big deal. You need to clean the closet out anyway, right? Okay, so I like to go back there. Something sets you off balance. The depression and anxiety comes and we're gonna start to look at it. And that's how you start to transform it. Okay, so the first thing I wanna do is a meditation on the nature of mind. The nature of mind. And this is one aspect of the mind So I want to just ask, a lot of you have done these courses, I know, okay? In Tibetan Buddhism, the mind, they say, has only two characteristics. Only two characteristics. Now, if you've already done courses on the mind and you know what these characteristics are, please be silent. Don't say. But if you're newer and you're thinking about what are the two characteristics of your mind, and I'll give you a synonym. Consciousness is the same. I'm not talking about your brain. Tibetan Buddhism sees that as separate from the mind. Mind or consciousness, which is something not physical, according to Tibetan Buddhism. Okay, so there's only two characteristics of the mind. Okay, again, for those who have not done the courses, or what would you say, and you can just put your hand up or you can put it in the chat. What do you think the two characteristics of your mind, when you think about your mind for a moment, what would you say the two characteristics of your mind might be? And don't feel like this is silly. Don't feel like, I don't want to say, I'll be embarrassed. This is how we learn. I'm just curious. Okay, any comments, any guesses? Kelly.
Well, my mind, it's constantly sort of, it's like a ocean, it feels like sometimes, just, changing. I don't know. A lot of movement.
Yes, so our minds, we have this kind of ever-flowing thoughts through the mind, don't we?
Yeah.
Like, and there's this constant fluctuations of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it feel a bit crowded?
Yeah. Sometimes it feels like, I don't know if you know that ride, the scrambler, that just kind of goes and you're holding on like this. You're going from side to side.
Right.
Sometimes it feels like that.
Thank you. Thank you. And you have, I think in Paris, is it, or in France, you have a Disney World there, don't you? With rides, right? You're aware of amusement rides. It's the same. Sometimes you feel like, oh my goodness, right? And depression and anxiety, very much like that,
Yes.
right? And you're making a trench over and over. That habit takes hold and you can't get out, okay? Anybody else? Any ideas? Everyone's afraid to say. Okay, we got a comment in the chat. Distracted like a monkey, right? Okay, so let's think about the distraction and the busyness, because this is the most common comment I get about the mind is, my mind's really busy. People say, wow, okay. That's actually not one of the characteristics of your mind, according to Tibetan Buddhism. So it's great, Kelly, Marina, to notice, wow, the mind's just jumping and it's waves of absolute, start to notice that process. Okay, and what happens, again, if you're newer to Buddhism, don't be alarmed if in the beginning of the first 3 years of your Dharma practice, you become alarmed because suddenly you're noticing all the negativity of the mind. Before we distracted ourselves, we didn't have to notice it that much, okay? So in the beginning, some people lose heart a little bit and say, wow, my mind is really garbage. It's not, but you're just noticing it. That's a positive sign. And it might not feel that comfortable. Hang in there, okay? So these are two qualities of the mind. Okay, those of you that know the two qualities, let's hear. Two characteristics of the mind. Christine, there was a hand, and Christine?
Clear and cognizing.
Yes, thank you. Okay, you ready? Clear and knowing, or cognizing. The mind is clear. So, most of us say, are you kidding me? My mind is not clear. Okay, actually, the real nature of your mind is clarity, they say, and awareness. Clarity and awareness. So here's your first antidote. Dealing with imbalanced states, dealing with depression and anxiety. This is a meditation I would encourage you to do, okay? A meditation on the clarity of consciousness. And there are different ways to do this meditation. Okay, I'd like you to sit comfortably right now. Whatever kind of meditation, you can face a computer, you can be in a chair. If you're in a chair, try not to lean too heavily against the back of the chair. So as you hold your body upright, your back will become strong over time. And you might want to place a cushion under your feet or have your feet flat on the floor. The legs are not crossed if you're in a chair. And the first thing I'd like you to do is you lightly close your eyes, but feel the extension of your spine. We know the spine is not straight, but as if your sides are long, creating that expansive quality. So there's a nice open stream to flow through the spine, through your even subtle energy system. Lightly close your eyes, focusing the eyes towards the tip of the nose or the floor in the space in front of you. The head is slightly tipped forward, not too far down, just comfortable. Comfortable position for the hands. And begin to deepen your respiration. But what's most important right now when you start, to try as best as possible to relax your body. So start at the very top of your head and just take a couple of minutes to go down through your body, scanning any places you may be holding tension. And allow the inhalation to create some space in the tension. And as you exhale, as much as you can, allow that tension to release. And sometimes it's helpful to do some sort of pranayama or breathing practice, just to clear out those obstacles from the subtle energy system in your body that we're often not in touch with. And we do something called the 9-round breathing. And you can start with different nostrils and breathing in and out. It's like an alternate nostril breathing. But if you want to do on your own, you forget which way to start, it doesn't really matter. Just nice to clear out. And there are variations. So if you'd like, you can start, and I just read this variation from a book about Lama Yeshe, one of our founders of the FPMT of our organization. And he started by exhaling through the left nostril. So you're closing off the right nostril. You can do so with your finger. You're going to exhale deeply through the left nostril. As you inhale, close off the left nostril and inhale deeply through the right. We're going to do that 3 times. And feel that you are lessening anger and hatred in your mind stream. And then we're going to reverse. We are going to exhale through the right nostril deeply as you close off the left nostril. We're going to close off the right nostril and inhale deeply through the left. And as you do this 3 times, imagine you're lessening attachment and grasping in your mind stream. 3 times. The last round, you are breathing in through both nostrils. You are exhaling through both nostrils. And imagine you're releasing ignorance and confusion from your mind 3 times. So when you've come to highest yoga tantra through getting an empowerment in that process, which is higher level practices, you can more so visualize the subtle energy system in your body and do those breathing exercises, thinking about those channels, things like that. The reason we experience delusion in our mind, the reason we experience anxiety, depression, things like that, is because the chakras, which are energy centers at certain areas of your body, those channels, those subtle channels, they become blocked and knotted. So the subtle winds are not flowing naturally and as openly as they could. And it's through the openness of that air flowing normally, naturally, that we can actualize higher states of realization. When they're blocked, we experience delusion, meaning imbalance in the mind. And the imbalances are not just depression and anxiety, but they're things we label anger, hatred, desire, attachment, ignorance, fear, jealousy, guilt, laziness, forgetfulness. I think you get the idea. Okay. So focusing on the clarity of consciousness, enormously helpful here as you begin to clear out those delusions and imbalances in the mind. So what I'd like you to do now is imagine you're lying on your back on a grassy hillside, and it is springtime, So we're starting to see some beautiful natural places outside. And imagine you're gazing up into the clear blue sky, an expanse of the clear blue sky, which I know may be hard to see in a city like Paris or another city, but at some point in our life, we have had that experience. A sky completely free of any clouds or obstruction, vast, luminous, and spacious. And that's your object now of concentration. So we're going to try to keep our mind focused there, merging ourselves with that experience as much as possible. Should the mind wander, you simply bring it back. Now, as you know, every once in a while, a thought jumps into your mind, pulls your concentration away from the clear, luminous sky that is like your mind, and you start thinking that thought, which leads to another thought, another distraction, and off you go in another direction. It's very normal. Just become aware, and you bring your mind back. And if you'd like, you can begin to see the sky that we're focused on, that is like our mind, clear. But as we know, occasionally a cloud will pass through. There are light, puffy clouds, like just a light thought comes into your mind. Sometimes there is a heavy bank of rain clouds that totally cover that clear blue radiance of the sky. Just like when a heavy delusion passes through your mind, like anger, chronic depression, and anxiety. They are not in the nature of your mind. They're temporary. And just like after a rainy day, eventually there'll be another clear day with the sky there radiant, spacious, vast, luminous, like the mind. So as you try to stay focused now on that clear, spacious experience of a clear blue sky that is like your mind, just play with the different experiences that distract you. Again, returning your awareness to the clear, spacious luminosity. And noting when a thought arises in your mind, can you explore for a moment, where does the thought come from? And another thing you can explore, especially if you've done this meditation many times before, is for a moment, instead of focusing intently on that clear, luminous spaciousness of a clear blue sky that is like your mind, but you notice occasionally thoughts come into your mind. See them like clouds that pass through. So you don't need to get too attached to any particular thought. It's also best not to have a judgment about any particular thought. We're in a path of kindness, so we don't need to perpetuate and practice judgment, especially negative judgments. But you're just observing. And I'll add this word, with equanimity. You're simply observing with equanimity, meaning an equal regard for whatever arises, just watching. I'm not saying to myself, that's a bad thought I shouldn't have. I'm a Buddhist. I should not be thinking that. Let those rise off as bubbles floating away. You're simply observing. And so if you notice those bubbles of thoughts coming up in general, again, that are like clouds in the sky, see them like clouds in the sky. But if you're more experienced at this, try to focus on the space between the thoughts. Instead of the thoughts themselves, try to focus on the spaces between the thoughts and distractions, if you can. Slowly, I'd like you to bring yourself back to the grassy hillside. Just imagine you're lying there, it's comfortable. looking up into the sky. And then slowly bring yourself back into your space where you're sitting now. Just notice anything that arises in your mind for a moment. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. And I'd just like to ask you of any experiences from in the meditation, what was happening for you. And basically, could you get a sense, first of all, and it's hard to do, especially in the beginning, but of the clarity aspect of the mind. If we can just quiet ourselves and be still for a moment, you can merge yourself more with that expansive sky that's like the mind to find the clarity aspect. If you're focused on the spaces between the thoughts, for those of you that may have done this meditation many times, because the meditations are designed to be done over and over. So if you're able to do that, because then it really starts to penetrate, is if you found that space between the thoughts, in a sense, it's like a meditation on the nature of mind, the nature of your mind, which is clarity, that clarity aspect. Clear space that simply knows things, simply knows things. Moments of awareness, one creating the next, creating the next, creating the next. Any experiences, any questions, particularly about this? Please. Difficult to do? Somewhat difficult. So please don't give up. It's very helpful. So I find delusions arising in your mind. And this is how I use it. Everyday life. Everyday life. You go to the food market. You know, who in the past month, because in France you can go out to the food to get food, but then you have to go home again. Is that correct? In the lockdown. Okay, but you go to the food market. You go to the grocery store or the local market, because I believe, and I think this is quite sad in Paris, all your outdoor markets are closed now. Is that correct? No, they're open. Some are open? Okay, because Paris has wonderful outdoor markets. I lived in Paris for 9 months and it was wonderful many years ago. So, but you go, and then what happens if they don't have the thing that you wanted? What happens if the person near you is standing too close? What happens if you see somebody who doesn't have a mask on? What happens if, something happens and a cloud comes across your horizon? And suddenly, in the morning, you were fine. And now you're not fine anymore. You're not happy. Any of you have this experience the past week or the past month? Oh, yes, right? Of course, it's common. And then you hear from your government that you're locking down again. Didn't France just lock down again? Or am I, okay. I have a friend who lives in the 9th in Paris. She's not happy. I mean, I keep getting these WhatsApp messages from her of like, horror. We're locking down again. She lives by herself. It's just been really hard for her, like that. And so again, you know, these things come up, the cloud comes across the horizon. Well, this is natural that the cloud is there. We know nature, clouds come and go. This is samsara's nature. Samsara, as many of you know, Sanskrit term that simply means to cycle, to turn. And we turn through suffering. That's what we turn through. So that means a cloud's going to come and block the sun if you are want to have a sunny day. What's your attitude about it? Because some people see the cloud come across and say to themselves, oh, a change in the weather, how wonderful. Or I'm too warm now. Isn't that nice that I went out for my walk, a cloud came and I'm a little bit protected now. It's all about your attitude. You can always choose happiness. It's your choice. And that depends on what you are most familiar with in your mind. So as we start to get familiar with our mind, that our mind is a changing phenomenon, yes. Changing thoughts going through and all. However, I have a clear, spacious reality to it. And I have a reflective quality to the mind that just simply reflects things back. I go to the market, the person in front of me is really irritating me. So they're simply reflecting something back to me, a message that I need. And the only way it's reflected back to me and why it's coming there in the first place is Tibetan Buddhism says, I have a karmic seed in my mind. I have an imprint in my mind that only I created that's causing me to be irritated by this person right now. This is according to Tibetan Buddhism, okay? There's no need to blame the external person in front of me, but that's what we do, and that's what we are patterned to do by our cultures. And look at the culture I live in, the United States. It's all about blame. It's all about external blame. And it's all about as soon as I fix everything outside of me, I fix the neighbor, I fix the person in the apartment next to me, you know, as soon as they move, as soon as their baby shuts up, as soon as they stop parking their car in front of the door here, and as long as they stop, you know, spraying all that perfume in the elevator, as long as that person in the market, you know, as long as the store has all the items that I want, then I'll be happy. Doesn't work that way. It's all an internal process. So it starts with you showing up for your mind. And when a cloud comes across the horizon, something you didn't expect or you're not prepared for or you don't like, it's about what you're going to do with it, what you're going to do with that information. Tibetan Buddhism is about taking responsibility. So one thing we don't do when we're unhappy, it's a couple different things we do as we try to do as Buddhists. One of the things is we don't suppress that we're feeling a negative emotion. So we're not into that as a Buddhist nun, I shouldn't be angry. And then you're very angry or you're irritated and you deny that you are. I'm really not angry. But you are seething. You're furious, okay? And you're saying, no, I'm not angry. Your whole jaw is clenched. I'm not angry, okay? So we don't do that, not helpful, because that creates more depression and anxiety inside of you. Holding on to that, bringing the mind down, okay? The second thing we do not do is act out. You're angry and you blow up at someone. You're in the queue for the market. The people on either side are really irritating you. You didn't find the items that you needed. Nobody helped you. And you're really angry. And you blow. You say something really rude to someone, make a rude gesture, not helpful. So what we do in Tibetan Buddhism to get real with your mind, to transform these experiences, is I'm noticing anger coming up in my mind. Okay. Now, I mentioned a whole list of delusions for you already. Fear, guilt, anxiety, depression. You understand, okay? When I mention that list, and you can even add the 3 main poisons, they're called 3 poisonous states of mind in Tibetan Buddhism. Anybody, for three poisons. What are the 3 poisons? Come on, I know you know these. Okay, please. We have SPAMT and Christine. Go for it. Do you want to unmute? SPAMT, I don't know what your name is. Okay, I can't, Christine?
Ignorance, attachment, and anger.
Okay, thank you. And Antoine also said the same thing. Thank you so much in the chat. Merci. Okay, we have ignorance, and I'll also label that confusion. Okay, we have attachment, grasping, and desire. Number 2. Number 3, anger, hatred. Okay, those are called the 3 poisons. So we're very familiar with them. We know what those are like, and they're unpleasant. They're unpleasant. I'm going to add 3 more to these, 3 more delusions, and that makes up the 6 root delusions according to Tibetan Buddhism. Number 4, pride. We know what that is. It's related to something called arrogance, haughtiness, same, like that. I'm just giving English words for those. There's many French words like that. Number 5 is doubt. So doubt is different than discernment. Different than discernment. Discernment is you're checking the philosophy. Let's say you don't believe in reincarnation. That's okay. But you're not sure, you're planning to check it out, but for now you're going to put it over here on a shelf. So I'm not thoroughly dismissing it and just saying I don't believe in that. It's garbage. Okay. Doubt would be, I think it's garbage, I don't believe it, but I'm not going to thoroughly research and check it out. So it always comes surfacing up, disturbing your path to the truth. That's doubt. You never thoroughly investigate all the way to the end where you're convinced, okay? And then the 6 of the root delusions, the 6 root delusions, number 6 is holding wrong views. Holding wrong views is not having reality, not seeing emptiness directly, okay? But there's also 5, what they call 5 different wrong views, but it's kind of confusion, things like that, related to the first ignorance and confusion, related to that, holding wrong views. But there's different ways we hold wrong views. Okay, so I think you get an idea. 6 root delusions. So slowly in the process, when I mentioned all these other root delusions, the 6 root delusions and other delusions, maybe 1 or 2 really jumped up for you right in your mind. Like you're like, those are mine. Okay. So what you want to do first is identify what are your main operating delusions, and you want to go after those first, meaning I want to understand how my mind functions with those. I want to catch them and watch them more as they arise. Okay. So for me in life as a child and things, I think as I grew up as well, I think anger was one of my things. I mean, we have all the root delusions. I'm sorry, all the delusions operating. Most of us have all of them we experience, but we have 1 or 2 that are a little stronger for us. So for me, I felt like anger was more kind of an operation. And I'm not going to blame my parents and say, well, it's because of them. And, no, I mean, I made a contract. This is the way I see my life. We make a contract based on the karmic seeds planted in our consciousness. How do the seeds get there? They're planted by every activity I do with my body, speech, and mind. I plant them. I'm the farmer. Okay. So every time I think a negative thought, bing, negative imprint goes into my mind. Every time I say a negative word to somebody, negative imprint in my consciousness. Every time I do something kind for someone, buy somebody flowers, let somebody in with their car in front of me, spaciously, happily, happy seed goes into my mind, positive imprint in my mind the positive will ripen definitely in happiness for me. The negative imprints will definitely ripen in suffering for me, not for anyone else, for me. So I'm having a negative experience in my mind, if I can first begin to think about karma and think this is only the result of a negative imprint, a negative deed I've done in the past. And I'm not going to lay a trip on myself, meaning I'm not going to get down on myself and be angry at myself because I didn't practice the way a proper Buddhist would practice. I don't need to say that. I'm just going to observe and go, huh, I'm really not liking what I'm experiencing today. I'm noticing a lot of fear coming up. I'm noticing I'm really depressed today, really grasping, whatever it is, I'm just noticing and observing through meditation. We start processing, observing the mind. It's fascinating. Your mind is fascinating. I promise. Okay. And it's extremely entertaining at times. You're never bored again. You're never bored again. There's always that passage of the mind to watch how it's responding. But you are going to see some things that are not comfortable in your mind. That's part of the process. It's okay. Because eventually I'll become more comfortable. So I noticed anger in my mind. I started noticing that. And I said, oh, so then I got into Buddhism. And I noticed some of the angry experiences never left me feeling very good. This is before the Dharma. So I already had that experience of, I wasn't really comfortable with anger. I certainly wasn't comfortable when I saw it in other people. And when I saw it in myself, I wasn't comfortable. But I didn't really know what to do about it. Nobody showed me that. Nobody explained. I just see people, bursting out in anger, yelling at someone. I'd see people giving somebody a rude hand gesture, right? And it never felt good. And I did that to people. Sometimes it never felt right. But you notice, you just start to notice gently, when you can. Then I got into Buddhism. And they said, oh yeah, So then you start teaching about components of anger, irritation, annoyance, frustration. Okay. These are lesser degrees of anger. Again, irritation, annoyance, frustration. Oh, so I thought, I have those in my mind. I've seen those in my mind, but they're long before I get really angry. They're way before that. So what I've noticed now through the process of my meditation, my study in Buddhism, my practice of Buddhism, meaning on the cushion and off the cushion when I'm with people, is I catch it now at irritation. I catch it at a much lesser degree, the anger. And I can't even remember the last time I was really angry, like really angry. It just doesn't get to that point anymore. It doesn't get to that point naturally. I'm not forcing and suppressing anything. I'm not denying that I'm angry. I will notice irritation. And I'll give you an example. You might notice, we might not be comfortable with everyone we meet. Now with pandemic and lockdown, we haven't really seen each other and socialized. It's happened very little, okay? But occasionally I've gone to my grocery store. If I needed food, I go to the grocery store. And occasionally you see somebody in the grocery store and your mind labels on them. It could be because of the shirt they're wearing, the slogan on their t-shirt. We just went through, last year, as you know, we went through a very fractious election procedure to elect a new leader. It was really awful living in the States last year. We had a lot of deaths from COVID, as you know, and we had this horrible political system going on. And our electoral policy is a mess, basically, how we elect people. We don't have money to educate children in the States publicly, but we have billions of dollars to put into electing a president. It's absurd. So what would happen is you'd see somebody with a certain electoral button or a hat and a judgment would come out and you'd be like, they're crap, or whatever you'd say. They're not good. It's not true. It's simply not true. Okay, I need to rewrite reality. I need to learn how to rewrite it. Why? It makes you happier, more peaceful on the planet. Okay. So here's what I would do in the supermarket. Here comes the person walking, and this is anybody that irritates you. We all have somebody in our life that's difficult. Your boss, your Uncle Charlie, your neighbor, there's somebody that sets you off balance a little bit. They smell, they're really loud, you don't agree with their views. They always say the wrong thing. They're very challenging, whatever. So now what happens is when I see that person just walking toward me, there's your practice. That's where the practice starts. And I notice my mind and I notice irritation. The bubble of irritation arise in the mind. Maybe many bubbles. Okay. But I'm just watching. I'm just watching. I'm not responding and reacting. I'm simply observing, right? And sometimes I include humor. Okay, here comes a person I know, and they're coming right over to me and I'm thinking, oh no, I don't really want to talk to them, okay? But what I'll do is in the back of my mind is a little voice that I've learned, I practice with this, a little voice in my irritation that will say to me, Amy, don't open your mouth right now. And I will stay like this as the person comes over to me, pleasant, but I'm also trying to cultivate in my mind, seriously, in my irritation, I'm trying to cultivate, number one, openness to this person. Seriously. Number two, I'm cultivating curiosity. This is a great word. Please use this word this week, at least through the weekend course. Curiosity, I would use it for the rest of your life. And what I mean by that is when a negative mind state arises for you, this is what Westerners do. We judge ourselves. We criticize ourselves. Again, as I mentioned before, I shouldn't be thinking this as a Buddhist nun. This is the wrong thought. I'm bad. No. Too fast.
It looks like we have a problem with the translation. People can't hear Nadia anymore.
Okay. Let's hold on a moment.
Yes, just try to fix it quickly and then we'll find another solution if it doesn't work.
No problem. I'm on a roll though. No, I'm joking.
Est-ce que c'est du coup toujours comme ça? Nadia, du coup, tu nous entends ou pas? Ouais. Tu peux tester ta connexion juste pour... Maybe what we can do, Venerable, is I can translate in French, so it will not be simultaneous anymore.
That's okay.
The only thing is, yes, please.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm just thinking if I speak now, but then people have to switch their translation.
Okay, just have about a half an hour, a little more than a half an hour left, but I do see 206 in the chat, which is 8:06 your time, evening. Malika has a longer thing about suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to know if you could translate that a little bit. I can read a bit, but is it something we should address? Or I may be talking about that later. So I just wanted to look at that for a moment.
Yeah, it's a question about when someone has suicidal thoughts. should we just tell that person that it's black clouds that are and they are going to go away, or is this person's sort of filter too strong to just? So that's the idea of the question.
Okay.
The idea being that some people would just then commit suicide. So yeah.
Okay. Yes. So let me address that, and then we're going to go back to the curiosity. If you can translate until we can. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah. So what I'm just going to write in the chat that then people have to come back to the English channel.
Okay.
And actually, Nadia might be able to do that too. So maybe we could also try that too. Venerable, let's try like that, and we'll try with Nadia if see if we can hear her on the English channel, without the translation, and if it doesn't work, then I translate.
Okay. Okay. One thing, and I'll get back also, we'll talk more about suicidal thoughts that create in chronic depression, but just briefly right now, and then I want to go back to what I was speaking about is, and thank you for the question. Sorry, yeah, maybe, yeah.
Est-ce que Nadia, Non, je crois qu'on t'entend pas. Ok, donc je vais traduire du coup. Et effectivement, du coup, si Nadia peut essayer de se déconnecter, reconnecter. En fait, il y avait une question de Malika que vous avez dans le chat, donc vous pouvez regarder au sujet de personnes qui auraient effectivement des pensées pour se suicider. Donc, Vénérable Amy, en fait, elle reviendra là-dessus tout à l'heure, mais elle va en dire, je crois qu'elle va en dire un petit peu maintenant.
And one other thing before we start, I'm just going to put my website here in the chat.
Elle écrit son site internet dans le chat.
And the reason is there are buttons on there to connect you to a YouTube channel where there's more courses and things on there if it's helpful, and other things on the website. So you can get more information if it's helpful.
Et donc sur le site internet, il y a des ressources, dont en fait un canal YouTube avec des vidéos d'enseignement.
So regarding suicidal thoughts, it's not really appropriate. It first of all depends on your relationship with the person.
Donc si on revient sur la question de Malika sur le suicide, la première chose, c'est que ça dépend de la relation qu'on a avec la personne.
And it's not really appropriate to say to someone who's not, for instance, a Buddhist practitioner or somebody who's chronically depressed, to just say, oh, well, that's your karma and you should stop thinking those thoughts, or they're just, they won't understand.
Et donc en particulier, c'est pas approprié de se référer à des idées bouddhistes comme le karma pour expliquer, parce que ces personnes, elles vont pas comprendre, même si on dit que c'est lié au karma. And Venerable, Nadia is back, so maybe we can do another test.
Okay.
Ida, I think you have to put the translation back on. Yeah, we have to set up the translation back. I'm so sorry that it's interrupting your teaching.
It's okay.
So Ida, if you can, yeah, now we have the translation on. So let's have a try. And if French people can just, si les personnes françaises, vous pouvez juste mettre dans le chat si ça marche ou pas. Okay.
Okay, and I have it on English, so. Okay, Nadia and I are communicating. Okay.
Is it working?
So let's try. We'll just try again.
Okay.
Is this technical problem an exercise? Isn't it? Isn't it though? Right? I mean, I think we're all doing well with that. Okay. So this is one thing, just to finish the thought, and we can go on much later in the tomorrow or Sunday about suicidal thoughts when we get into specifics of depression.
So,
So-
I'm still not sure it's working or not. And if not, no, it's not working. So I'll keep on
okay.
translating. Donc, on pourra reparler plus de ces questions dimanche, mais peut-être juste une chose en plus.
Okay. So what I would do with someone if they're somewhat open to start to analyze their mind and their thoughts gently.
Et donc, ce que je ferais, s'il y a quelqu'un qui est prêt à analyser ses pensées et son esprit avec gentillesse, ou ce que je ferais avec gentillesse.
I'll give an example. I had a friend who was chronically depressed for, I think it really was about 40 years.
Et donc, pour donner un exemple, j'ai une amie qui a souffert de dépression chronique pendant quelque chose comme 40 ans.
She was not a Buddhist.
Elle n'était pas bouddhiste.
So it wasn't appropriate for me to say it's simply a result of your negative karma.
Et donc, c'était pas approprié pour moi de dire c'est simplement le résultat de ton karma négatif.
She didn't understand the idea of the mind being clear and knowing.
Et elle comprenait pas l'idée de l'esprit qui serait clair et connaissant.
But I had a memory of her when we were children.
Mais je me souvenais j'avais un souvenir d'elle quand on était petit.
She was relatively happy,
Elle était relativement heureuse,
free.
libre.
When we became teenagers together,
Et quand on est devenus adolescentes, toutes les deux,
we had some very nice memories of being together
on avait des souvenirs très sympas d'être ensemble.
before she became clinically depressed.
Et ça, c'était avant sa dépression.
So a few times when I was with her or speaking to her on the phone,
Et donc, pas plusieurs reprises quand je l'avais au téléphone.
and I would remind her of those times.
Et en fait, je lui rappelais ces moments-là.
And I mentioned that, remember, and I gave her this specific activity we did, the weekend we spent together.
Et donc, je pouvais, par exemple, lui dire, souviens-toi, et puis je lui décrivais de manière très spécifique ce qu'on faisait ensemble.
The walk on the beach.
Par exemple, la promenade sur la plage.
And really to the point where she could remember the memory.
Et jusqu'à ce qu'elle puisse se souvenir des souvenirs.
And to which she said to me, oh yes, I remember that.
Et jusqu'à qu'elle puisse dire, ah oui, je me souviens de ça.
And then I added very quickly,
Et ensuite, j'ai vu rapidement ajouter,
you didn't seem to be depressed then.
tu n'avais pas l'air d'être déprimé à ce moment-là.
And then she thought about it quietly.
Et ça l'a fait réfléchir en silence.
And so she said, yes. She said, I realize, yeah, you're right.
Et donc, elle a dit, oui, tu as raison, tu as raison. Elle a réalisé.
So then I said to her, it seems that the depression's not always in your mind.
Donc, je lui ai dit, et j'ai l'impression que la dépression, elle n'est pas toujours dans ton esprit.
That you feel like you have a lot of it for many years in your mind now.
Et que tu as l'impression que tu l'as tout le temps, parce qu'il y a eu de nombreuses années qui se sont écoulées comme ça.
And that it feels like you've got a very heavy habit of it in your mind.
Et tu as l'impression d'avoir une habitude très lourde de ça dans ton esprit.
But it's pretty clear that it wasn't always in your mind.
Mais c'est très clair que ce n'était pas toujours dans ton esprit.
And if there's a time before the depression that you remember now,
Et s'il y a un moment avant la dépression dont tu te rappelles maintenant,
it shows that the depression is temporary.
ça montre que la dépression, elle est juste temporaire.
And don't you think there could be an option of there being an after the depression because the depression changes?
Et du coup, est-ce que tu ne penses pas qu'il y aura aussi un après la dépression puisqu'elle change?
So you're really working with, and this is more for Malika, her question. You're really working with whatever you personally feel your relationship with that person.
Et donc pour Malika, on se sert vraiment de ce qu'on pense être la relation avec la personne. On s'appuie sur cette relation.
So any way you can get them to start thinking a little bit that depression, all these negativities are impermanent, they're temporary.
Donc quels que soient les moyens qu'on puisse trouver pour faire penser à la personne que la dépression, elle est impermanente, qu'elle est temporaire.
You might observe there was a time before you felt this in your mind.
Qu'on peut observer qu'il y avait un moment avant ce qu'on se ressent cela.
A time you didn't experience as much of that delusion in your mind.
Un moment où on n'expérimentait pas tant que ça dans notre esprit.
And then slowly through that process, getting them to gently start to look at the thoughts and the things and the triggers, we call it in English, the triggers that would suddenly create a big depressed thought, a big suicidal thought.
Et comme ça, petit à petit, on va les amener à explorer dans leur esprit les pensées, et en particulier les déclencheurs, ce qui va effectivement créer ces pensées suicidaires.
Is that helpful somewhat, Malika?
Est-ce que ça t'aide, Malika?
And another thing in general, when we're working with the mind, is when I said the word triggers.
Et donc une chose en général, quand on travaille sur l'esprit, quand je parle de trigger, un trigger, c'est vraiment c'est sur un pistolet, c'est le bouton sur lequel on appuie, donc c'est vraiment ce qui déclenche.
Okay, so triggers could be when I'm around this group of people, I act like this.
Donc par exemple, le déclencheur, ça peut être quand je suis avec ce groupe, je me comporte de cette façon.
When I'm doing this sort of work, I fall into these patterns.
Quand je fais ce type de travail, ça m'amène à cette manière de réagir un peu répétitif, ce comportement-là.
I believe enough of you, just looking at your ages, know yourself to some degree, and therefore you know certain patterns in your life that create a very nice space of happiness for you, and certain patterns in your life that create other spaces for you, correct? Would you say?
Et donc quand je regarde l'audience, je vois qu'il y a effectivement des gens qui sont déjà un petit peu âgés. Je suis convaincu que parmi vous, vous êtes capable de voir des moments dans votre vie avec des choses qui se répétaient, qui créent du bonheur, et puis des moments où, à l'inverse, ça vous rendait triste. So maybe we can have another try with Nadia.
Okay.
So if you can all switch, si vous pouvez à nouveau passer sur le canal français, puis on va essayer à nouveau.
Okay, I'm going to check with Nadia if she can hear me. So Nadia, you cannot, or you can hear me? Okay. How is everyone else doing?
No,
Can you hear Nadia speaking and translating for you?
No,
Not working?
no, it doesn't seem to be. No, still not.
Doesn't seem to be.
Yeah.
I'm
So
so
we'll
sorry.
keep going
Okay, we'll
like
keep
this,
going.
and we'll sort it out for tomorrow. But
Sure.
yeah, sometimes it happens. I remember other events, FPMTF events, where people were complaining in the chat that the
Sure.
translation stopped. So we
This
have
is
to
our
adapt.
karma, right?
Yes.
This is our karma. Okay, so let's see, we were talking about the suicidal thoughts. And so what I find regarding the triggers,
Donc, ce que je trouve quand on parle de cette question de déclencheur,
okay, is you want to protect your mind to a degree.
Donc c'est qu'on veut en fait protéger notre esprit d'une certaine manière.
Dharma is the ultimate mind protection.
Et le dharma, c'est vraiment la protection ultime.
And what I mean by that is we are cultivating the kind heart.
Et ce que je veux dire, c'est qu'on cultive le cœur ouvert, le cœur aimant.
We are cultivating the right view,
On cultive la vue juste,
which is a lot related to our wisdom.
ce qui est connecté à notre sagesse.
So the more you are engaging with beings and your reality and your world,
Et donc, plus on est en contact avec les êtres, la réalité, le monde,
with a good heart and wisdom, then the more balanced everything will be.
avec un cœur aimant et de la sagesse, et ben, plus on fait ça et plus les choses seront équilibrées.
And we're going to talk more in future sessions about how to protect your mind specifically from certain triggers that create negativity in your mind.
Et on va explorer dans les sessions à venir, en particulier, comment protéger notre esprit de certaines choses qui vont nous déclencher.
And also certain triggers that create happiness in your mind.
Et aussi certaines choses qui déclenchent du bonheur dans notre esprit.
So we're going to look at how coping with those different triggers. How does it work?
Et donc, on va voir comment faire face à ces différents déclencheurs, comment ils fonctionnent.
So let me go back to openness, curiosity in relation with the situations and people that create a lack of balance in our mind.
Donc, revenons au fait d'être ouvert et curieux avec les personnes qui peuvent nous déséquilibrer, qui créent effectivement du déséquilibre.
And then I will also take some additional questions if you have.
Et ensuite, je répondrai à des questions si vous en avez.
So I mentioned the word curiosity
Donc, j'ai mentionné le mot curiosité
and openness.
et ouverture.
And here again is my difficult, challenging, irritating person walking toward me.
Et à nouveau, il y a cette personne difficile, irritante qui marche vers moi.
Now I'm labeling them irritating.
Maintenant, c'est moi qui leur donne l'étiquette d'irritante.
But Tibetan Buddhism would say there's no concretely irritating being there.
Mais le bouddhisme tibétain dirait qu'il n'y a pas d'être vraiment irritant là.
Because everyone would see them that way. And people have a different experience of them, and some people may really enjoy them.
Parce que si c'était le cas, à ce moment-là, tout le monde les verrait comme ça. Or, il y a des gens qui peuvent les apprécier.
But because of the negative seeds I planted in my mind, suddenly they're just creating that on my horizon.
Et c'est parce que j'ai planté des graines négatives dans mon esprit que c'est ça qui apparaît dans mon horizon.
Meaning it's coming from my mind.
Donc, ça veut dire que ça vient de mon esprit.
And this is one of the greatest gifts of Tibetan Buddhism, is that it says everything comes from your mind.
Et c'est probablement un des plus grands dons du bouddhisme tibétain, c'est que ça dit que tout, absolument tout, vient de notre esprit.
So that's something we can continue to talk about this weekend.
Et ça, c'est quelque chose dont on peut continuer à parler ce week-end.
So what I do now is the person is coming towards me with whatever cap, whatever's writing on the cap or t-shirt is in front of me that I may not agree with.
Et donc, ce que je fais, donc il y a cette personne qui avance vers moi avec cette casquette ou ce slogan, quelque chose avec lequel je ne suis pas d'accord.
But if I remain somewhat open,
Et si je reste d'une certaine manière ouverte,
and how do we remain open is something you don't like, the cloud on the horizon.
Et comment on reste ouvert? C'est quand il y a quelque chose qu'on n'aime pas, un nuage à l'horizon.
If I allow myself to keep the cloud far away,
Si je permets que le nuage reste au loin,
it appears to be just some kind of shadow obscuring the clear blue sky from me and the sun.
alors c'est juste comme une ombre qui obscure le ciel bleu dans un ciel ensoleillé.
The same thing with a challenging person.
Même chose pour la personne.
If I keep them over there,
Si je les garde là-bas,
I don't like what their t-shirt says.
j'aime pas ce que leur t-shirt dit,
I don't like what their hat says.
j'aime pas ce que leur chapeau dit,
I don't like the button they're wearing.
j'aime pas le bouton qu'ils portent, le badge qu'ils portent.
And now I am solidifying them as we say in English, a jerk.
Et maintenant, je les rends solides comme jerk, un abruti.
And that view allows me to box them into a cage
Et avec cette vue, ça me permet de les mettre dans une case.
But what the real cage is around is my heart-mind experience.
Et cette cage cette case qui est une cage, en fait, c'est ça qui peut m'enfermer. I might not have gotten the last thing you said, Venerable, if you can repeat.
Okay, sure. The cage that I box that person into, the irritating,
Okay.
is really me putting a cage around my heart-mind experience.
Donc cette cage dans laquelle j'enferme cette personne, en fait, en fait ce qui se passe, c'est que c'est plutôt mon cœur et mon expérience, mon cœur, mon esprit qui sont enfermés dans cette cage.
Okay, so I am making a prison for myself based on my negative views.
Donc je m'enferme dans une prison avec mes vues négatives.
Here's what you need to do.
Donc, voilà ce qu'il faut faire.
If you can, I try this a lot.
Donc, si vous pouvez, moi j'essaye beaucoup.
Move in close.
Rapprochez-vous.
What I mean is, if you move in close to the obscuring cloud and you get closer to it,
Si vous vous rapprochez d'un ciel nuageux,
it's just an experience of moisture in a certain configuration.
en fait, on se rend compte que c'est juste de l'humidité qui a pris une certaine forme.
When I'm in there, when I'm in the cloud, it doesn't really appear, it's a whole different experience.
Donc quand je suis dans le nuage, l'expérience est complètement différente.
It's more fluid,
C'est plus fluide,
it's a little bit clearer,
c'est un peu plus clair
and it's changing all the time.
et ça change tout le temps.
So this negative person,
Donc cette personne négative,
there's other aspects to this person I'm not seeing. I'm not allowing myself to see.
il y a d'autres aspects de cette personne que je ne vois pas ou que je ne me permets pas de voir.
Anger blocks it all.
C'est la colère qui bloque tout.
Irritation, frustration, and annoyance blocks it partially.
L'irritation, la frustration, le fait d'être ennuyé, ça le bloque partiellement.
But fortunately, I practiced enough of this exercise where when irritation, frustration, and annoyance seem to get activated in my mind in relation to a person,
Et heureusement, je me suis suffisamment entraîné pour que quand la frustration, le fait d'être ennuyé, l'irritation apparaissent dans mon esprit et commencent à bloquer.
I've exercised and practiced so much of interjecting the word curiosity.
Donc ça, c'est quand c'est en relation avec une personne. J'ai pratiqué en fait de faire apparaître le mot curiosité.
That I more quickly go to curiosity about this person
Et donc, je vais plus rapidement à la curiosité au sujet de cette personne
and about myself.
et au sujet de moi-même.
So example is, I wonder why this person is frightening me right now.
Et par exemple, je vais me demander, tiens, je me demande pourquoi cette personne me terrifie maintenant.
I might be in an aisle in the grocery store
Et peut-être que je suis dans une aile du supermarché, dans une allée.
with this person that might be very intimidating,
avec cette personne qui peut être très intimidante
and you feel some fear.
et vous ressentez de la peur.
You feel a little, concerned, a little, you kind of look and then you look away.
Et donc, vous êtes inquiet, vous regardez, vous tournez le regard.
Little tight, maybe here.
Peut-être un peu de sentiment comme ça, d'être serré dans la poitrine.
So my mind is placing a whole thing on this person.
Et donc, mon esprit, en fait, place plein de choses sur cette personne.
But if I insert curiosity,
Mais si j'y rajoute de la curiosité,
well, why is this disturbing me?
mais finalement, pourquoi ça me dérange?
I have friends that look like that.
J'ai des amis qui ressemblent à ça.
My dad was a very big guy.
Mon père était un gars très costaud.
Whatever you're seeing, I do know people that I like that look like this.
Et quoi que vous voyez, vous pouvez vous dire, je connais des gens qui ressemblent à ça et que
So
j'aime bien.
automatically it starts opening up space in my mind of, wow, I've been comfortable with people like this before.
Et donc, automatiquement, ça va ouvrir un espace dans mon esprit qui va me permettre de penser, ah, mais j'ai déjà été confortable avec des gens comme ça dans le passé.
When you're afraid,
Quand vous avez peur,
the fear exudes through the pores of your body.
la peur, en fait, elle se répand à l'extérieur de votre corps par les pores de votre peau.
A certain energy goes out from you, as you know.
Il y a une certaine énergie qui sort de vous, comme vous savez.
Would you agree?
Est-ce que vous êtes d'accord?
That's why when we're afraid around animals, they get afraid. They sense it more. They're more in touch with that.
Donc, les animaux, ils ressentent plus ça, ils sont plus en contact avec ça, le fait de ressentir la peur comme ça.
Afraid. When I get afraid, I might have a certain fearful expression on my face.
Donc, si j'ai peur, je peux avoir une expression de peur sur mon visage.
Did you ever think about what's on your face?
Est-ce que vous avez déjà réfléchi à ce qui se manifeste sur votre visage?
So when I'm afraid, I judge, and I look down the aisle now, and that's what's on my face.
Et donc, quand j'ai peur, je juge, et donc, il y a cette expression de peur qui est sur mon visage.
Looking at the person and thinking, I'm afraid.
Et donc, regarder la personne et penser, j'ai peur.
Which could mean I'm feeling something's wrong with them, for me.
Ce qui peut vouloir dire, je ressens qu'il y a quelque chose qui ne va pas avec eux.
And there they are. This just happened like last month. And there they are opening their freezer door in their section down the aisle. And they
donc, eux,
glance over at me.
De leur côté, eux, ça m'est arrivé il y a un mois, ils sont en train d'ouvrir la porte du réfrigérateur dans leur aile et ils me regardent.
Now they're looking at me looking like this, bald, maroon. That there aren't a lot of this walking around my community, okay?
Et donc ils me voient comme ça, avec le crâne chauve, ma robe marron. Il n'y a pas beaucoup de gens comme ça dans la communauté où j'habite.
So if I'm not happy here and I look at them, they're looking at me like, what is that over there?
Et donc si effectivement j'ai en plus ce visage avec de la peur et au lieu d'être souriante, c'est ça qu'ils voient. Donc cet ensemble, ils disent mais qu'est-ce que c'est que ça?
Seriously, or just even if you look normal but you're not smiling and you're looking afraid, imagine how they're viewing that too.
Et même si j'avais l'air un visage normal, mais que je suis pas en train de sourire quand je les regarde et qu'ils me voient avec cet accoutrement, imaginez ce qu'ils pensent.
And think about even if they look different than everybody normal in your community, whatever normal is. Think about how they go through their lives with everybody staring at them.
Et aussi, on peut se mettre à leur place et pense donc si effectivement eux aussi, ils ont l'air différents des autres personnes dans leur communauté. Pensez ce que c'est la vie pour eux, comment ils sont regardés, c'est quoi leur expérience, le fait d'être regardés comme différents.
So when I get curious and start realizing that I know people and like people that look like this.
Donc, quand je suis curieuse et que je réalise, par exemple, que je connais des gens qui ressemblent qui ont la même apparence et que j'apprécie,
I start relaxing a little bit.
je me relaxe un petit peu.
More openness here in the heart-mind experience.
Et donc, il y a plus d'ouverture dans mon expérience, plus d'ouverture dans le cœur, dans mon expérience.
Which can create me to soften my expression towards them.
Et donc, le résultat, c'est que mon expression faciale, mon expression vis-à-vis d'eux va s'adoucir.
This whole process happened for me the other day in a store.
Et donc, ce processus, il m'est arrivé l'autre jour dans une boutique.
So when I finally turned with a little bit of a smile on my face,
Et donc, quand finalement je me suis retourné avec un petit peu de sourire sur mon visage,
it gave that person space to suddenly feel okay to interact with me.
ça a donné de l'espace à la personne pour soudainement se sentir OK sur le fait d'interagir avec moi.
And we ended up having a really nice interaction.
Et on a finalement eu une interaction très, très sympa.
And then went off down our aisle but a very positive experience occurring.
Et après, chacun est reparti de son côté dans son allée, mais il y a eu une expérience très positive qui s'est passée.
Where what's often happening today is there's some very negative experiences happening that we solidify.
Mais ce qui se passe souvent, c'est que c'est plutôt des expériences négatives qui nous arrivent et qu'on solidifie,
That other people solidify,
que les d'autres personnes solidifient.
and then we end up bashing from this solid concrete mass of disturbance.
Et donc, le résultat, c'est qu'il y a une espèce de confrontation de cette énergie très solide des deux côtés.
So experience of moving in closely to someone. Now, again, there are certain areas of our wisdom we have to protect ourselves.
Et donc, dans ce processus de se rapprocher, de s'ouvrir, il faut quand même, il y a quand même certains aspects de sagesse qu'il faut garder.
So I am not able to take every street and homeless person I see into my home. I'm not comfortable doing that.
Par exemple, je suis pas capable d'accueillir tous les personnes SDF, tous les sans-abri chez moi. Ça, je suis pas capable.
I don't choose to walk around certain areas of downtown Philadelphia at night. I don't feel safe doing that.
Je me promène pas dans certains endroits de Philadelphie la nuit. Ça, par exemple, je suis pas confortable pour faire ça.
So you want to use your wisdom not to necessarily put yourself in a dangerous space or with dangerous people or people that make you very disturbed. Protect yourself to a degree.
Donc, il faut faire preuve de sagesse pour finalement ne pas se mettre en danger et donc vraiment penser à se protéger, et protéger
But
l'autre.
because of samsara, some other folks are going to come into our space at times. And how is your mind?
Mais parce qu'on est dans le samsara, il va quand même y avoir ces expériences de ces autres personnes, entre guillemets, qui vont se présenter à nous, et à ce moment-là, comment on va réagir, comment va être notre esprit.
I know we just have a couple more minutes, but let me just finish this thought and we'll continue tomorrow.
Donc, il reste quelques minutes, mais Vénérable Amy va juste finir ce qu'elle est en train de dire, et on continuera demain.
So lastly, I believe in the fundamental goodness of every being.
Et donc, pour finir, je crois vraiment dans la bonté fondamentale de chaque être,
Because we have Buddha nature,
parce qu'on a la nature de Bouddha,
which is what Tibetan Buddhism says.
ce qui est ce que le bouddhisme tibétain dit.
What that means is we are not Buddhas necessarily,
Et ce que ça veut dire, c'est pas nécessairement qu'on est des Bouddhas,
but you have a potential that can awaken into a fully realized being.
mais on a un potentiel qui peut se réveiller dans le fait de devenir des êtres complètement éveillés, des Bouddhas.
And every being with a consciousness or a mind has Buddha nature, has that potential.
Et tous les êtres avec un esprit ont ce potentiel.
So I would rather focus on the positive qualities of a person than seeing all the problems.
Et donc, je préfère me concentrer sur les qualités positives d'une personne plutôt que de regarder tous les problèmes.
But while I'm still managing to protect myself if I need to.
Mais tout en continuant à me protéger si j'ai besoin.
So one example is my neighbor on this side, the house on this side.
Donc, par exemple, mon voisin du côté de cette maison,
Because I'm in a suburban community outside Philadelphia.
parce que je suis dans une communauté en fait de banlieue à l'extérieur de Philadelphie.
And this neighbor, the father of the family, has lived next door to our house for close to 50 years.
Et donc, le père de ce voisin, il a vécu dans cette maison pendant presque 50 ans.
I went to school with his son,
Je suis allé à l'école avec son fils.
and they're a lovely family.
Et c'est une famille adorable.
And he lives next door now with his youngest son, the youngest son's wife, and the 2 grandchildren, and they're all wonderful.
Et donc, il vit avec son fils, la femme de son fils, et 2 petits-enfants. Ils sont tous merveilleux.
I could label him a racist.
Je pourrais le qualifier de raciste.
He has said racist things,
Il a
and
dit des
he's
choses
displayed
racistes.
kind of racist behavior at times.
Et il a parfois des comportements racistes.
But I've chosen, instead of just holding him as a racist,
Mais j'ai choisi, plutôt que de juste me relier à lui comme un raciste,
he has driven me to the local train when I needed to teach in New York at our center.
c'est lui qui m'a amené à la gare locale quand j'allais enseigner à New York.
He has helped when I'm away, watch my house, taken in our newspaper.
Il surveille la maison quand je suis pas là, il ramasse le courrier.
He's a little bit old now, but he's like my surrogate father.
Et donc, il est un peu vieux maintenant, mais c'est comme, je crois que c'est le père adoptif, je suis pas sûr.
So, you know, I can focus on the negative aspects, but because I know him, because I've moved in close and I know many more aspects about him, he's more than just a racist.
Donc, comme je me suis rapproché de lui et que j'ai découvert d'autres aspects, d'autres qualités qu'il a, maintenant, pour moi, il est plus qu'un raciste.
I don't need to get into racist conversations with him, but if he does say something that I'm really opposed to, I will gently talk with him about another view.
Donc, j'ai pas besoin d'avoir des conversations racistes avec lui, mais si lui, il dit quelque chose de raciste, je pourrais gentiment lui dire que je partage pas son avis.
But he's really very kind, friendly, helpful. So I'd rather engage with that part of him that, makes me happy.
Mais en fait, il est vraiment gentil, serviable, et je préfère interagir avec cette partie de sa personnalité qui me rend vraiment heureuse.
And fortunately, around me, he doesn't really display or talk about many racist things.
Et heureusement, quand je suis autour de lui, finalement, il dit pas tellement de choses racistes.
So all of these beings we might consider other,
Et donc tous ces êtres qu'on considère comme des autres,
and other you're not
différents,
comfortable with.
et des autres avec qui on n'est pas confortable,
There's so many different aspects of them that you could enjoy and find healthy connection with.
il y a tellement d'aspects de leur personnalité qu'on pourrait apprécier et avec qui on peut créer une connexion qui soit saine, qui soit oui, de bonne qualité.
So I'm going to stop there for this evening, for
Donc,
today.
Vénérable Amy va s'arrêter maintenant.
Is there just one question right now that somebody's burning to ask?
Est-ce qu'il y a une question qui est vraiment que vous pouvez pas retenir, qu'il faut poser maintenant?
I know many of you are probably tired, so.
J'imagine qu'il y a
Okay.
beaucoup de gens qui sont fatigués.
Okay, so we are going to meet, I believe it's 3 o'clock afternoon your time. We have
Donc,
2
le rendez-vous
sessions tomorrow.
Le rendez-vous demain, c'est à 3 heures en heure française et on a 2 sessions demain,
2 sessions Sunday,
2 sessions dimanche.
and I will end more on time. And I'd like to just dedicate whatever positive energy that we've created from our time together
Et donc, on finira à l'heure sur les sessions précédentes, les sessions à venir. Et donc, Vénérable Amy voudrait dédier quelle que soit l'énergie positive qu'on a créée.
I'd like to roll that into our practices
Je voudrais intégrer ça dans nos pratiques
to helping us to try to embrace some of these techniques and meditations
pour nous aider à embrasser ces techniques de méditation
that will really help us quickly get to enlightenment.
qui nous aideront à rapidement devenir des Bouddhas. Très bien.
And mainly the reason is so we can be of the most benefit to all living beings.
Et la principale raison, c'est pour qu'on soit complètement bénéfique aux autres.
So for all those also with COVID, may they recover immediately. May the spread stop on our whole planet. May we return to good health, peace like that, and be able to have more and more positive interactions with everyone.
Donc que les personnes qui souffrent de Covid guérissent, que l'épidémie s'arrête et qu'on puisse revenir à une situation où on a des interactions, à nouveau des interactions positives les uns avec les autres.
And for the long lives of our precious teachers.
Et aussi pour la longue vie de nos enseignants, nos maîtres précieux.
So merci Arnaud, Nadia, everyone. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank
Merci.
you.
And see you tomorrow. Et à demain, tout le monde.
Bonsoir, à demain. Merci, thank you.
Thank you.
And if you can in the morning, you could try to do the meditation on the clarity of consciousness a little bit more, if you can.
Okay.
Et si
Thank
vous pouvez,
you.
demain matin, vous pouvez essayer de faire la méditation qu'on a fait sur la clarté de l'esprit un peu plus, si vous pouvez.
Merci.
Bonne nuit, merci beaucoup.
Très bien.